Okay. Hello, everyone. Hey, Dario.
Hello again.
Good afternoon, everyone. Let's take a bit of time and allow people to actually join today's analyst briefing, and then we can kickstart our session, which is full of data, different topic compared to the last one, quite critical as a therapeutic area, so on and so forth. Of course, also today, I will be talking with my Chief Research Officer, Dr. Dario Heyman, and we will be commenting over the trends focusing on oncology globally this time. The usual heads up, as in everybody now is familiar with the Q&A session of a Zoom webinar. So please, for any questions, just use the Q&A function or leave your questions in the chat area or raise your hands. So just feel free, we're quite flexible to collect any feedback, any question you might have. And we'll be happy, of course, to satisfy your curiosities and also your interests regarding the topic of today. So
obviously, the easier the questions, the better for us. But if you want to ask also some harder, tougher questions, I'm very happy to try to address those. It should be within our capabilities.
We might take a bit of time saying, okay, let's leave it open.
We are skipping the ones that we are not interested in answering.
True. Okay, I think we can kickstart today's session. Again, thank you everyone for joining. This is our latest analyst briefing, focusing on a very critical topic that is that of oncology, of course, with the lenses of digital health. A bit of setting the context, and then we will open the conversation with Dario. Why we actually picked oncology as a topic. Remember the last time we were talking about digital health funding strength. So it's a different, completely research topic that our team has been focusing on. Why this selection? The answer is quite simple, as it is strictly connected to its incidence in the global death rate, and of course, the burden of disease, of such a disease, of course. Considering these two, let's say, issues globally, and in order to tackle affordability, of course, of therapies, in order to cut the time for new therapies, in order to increase the early detection for prevention, et cetera, innovative minds, of course, in digital health have been directing their genius, let's say, in coming up with new solutions. Historically, or at least since we at Gallup Growth have been monitoring digital health, oncology has been attracting the most when it comes to funding, has been launching most of the solutions, so on and so forth. In order to comment against these trends, I'm joined today by our Chief Research Officer, and we will be going through our latest report released last week and share with you what's going on in oncology. Without further ado, Dario, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you, Anna, for having me again.
Are you doing fine? Are you okay?
Always good.
Okay, let's start our conversation. Simple. The first question I had for you, and I think it'll help also our audience to understand a bit where we stand in oncology. Let's please share with us what's going on in oncology when it comes to digital health solutions.
So when we look into the digital health, yeah, you can put a few slides up as well while we are speaking through that. Also considering that I see the two questions that are currently within the Q&A as well. We are trying to cover a few of the slides that are also part of the premium research, just to help people understand. The premium research is the research that is available for all of our Health Tech Alpha Pro and Enterprise users, but it's a basic the slide or the cut down version that is available to all users of the platform as soon as you are signing up to that. So we'll be deep diving into a few of the slides today as well, that you are not seeing if you're not a pro user. So when we look into digital health and how does it tackle oncology overall, oncology is a very broad topic, considering that it literally covers any cancer type that we are seeing in there. It can be within the colorectal, breast cancer, prostate, lung cancer, and within lung cancer it can be non-small cell lung cancers or small cell lung cancers, different lymphoma, etc. How we are tackling that within the platform itself is generally where within the patient journey does the digital health solution get in touch with the cancer, with the oncology side. So generally, when you are looking into that, you are either having the prevention side, so early screening, let's say the 23andMe variant. It can be more on the educational side, but we are seeing that how do both patients as well as family members coping with someone in the family who's having a disease. Can be from the diagnosis side. It can now be early diagnosis using liquid biopsy or what's not. It can be under the disease management side, and then it can even be within the non-clinical and clinical workflow side as well. So there are literally many different variants of how oncology is getting tackled within the digital health space. And this is also why a bit when you go back to the head points, to the key insights, Anna, is generally oncology has been a very hot topic within digital health, considering of the variety of solutions that are existing within the space, and where they are. It has always attracted a lot of value in terms of funding, considering that it's still one of the critical illnesses, or it's the critical illness that is killing the most people. Also, the cost to insurer, the cost to pharma is extremely high in the oncology space. So obviously, there is the bet on it of how can I lower the cost to either prevent cancer from happening or from people having cancer to actually cope with that. Now, what we've seen this year, and this is quite nice here, the minus 88% of venture funding. It has been going down to that now over the past few months, that we've seen that venture funding has significantly slowed down. Now, we have around 850 digital health ventures targeting oncology globally. So what we are now seeing is that the ones that are very mature are not necessarily raising much funding anymore. And this is why we've now seen that it can be either the value that is going significantly lower. So ventures that are in the next tranche are start raising funding, but it could also literally mean that there's literally a funding crunch, considering that investors haven't seen their return on investment at this point in time, and therefore funding is going to get pulled back. You got anything to add to this? Probably, Anna, to also see what you're also seeing within the market.
Okay. I'm sharing the funding slide. I don't know if you want to comment a bit.
Yeah, the funding
I would
slide.
focus a bit. Yeah, one second. I would comment funding in connection with partnership, because the two are, let's say, intertwining, and both have different trends, different excuse me, have been having a different, let's say, pattern. So it would be interesting to understand a bit more, not just the declining of funding, but what else has been happening. I mean, where is the, let's say, the health of digital health solutions in oncology? Because from a partnership perspective, we see an increase, right?
Absolutely. So we always need to think about digital health as like how do you drive return on investment, or how do you actually monetize or get money for your venture? Now, this can either be through venture capital funding, obviously considering that ventures need such funding in order to mature and therefore grow, but it could also be through partnerships. Now, this could be either strategic or commercial partnerships. So while we've seen that the funding has been decreasing quite significantly over the past few months, even though I wouldn't add, and it's not really visible within the report, considering that we had a cut off of the data by end of March, so Q1. funding in Q2 is actually accelerating as compared to Q1. I checked that earlier. We are about 2 times of what we've seen last quarter already, and we're just midst of Q2. But what we've seen significantly is that the number of partnerships have accelerated. Now, I also have the latest data on that. So while in Q1 2022, we had 112 partnerships as indicated within this chart, as of today, this year, we had 156 partnerships. So by end of March, so Q1 2023, we had 126 partnerships. Yeah. Within the last month and a half, we had another 30 partnerships within the space happening already. That's in year-on-year growth by about 32 or 33%, if my brain works correctly. So it's quite a strong increase in partnerships that we are seeing. Now, many of these partnerships are happening within the academia space, considering that ventures are trying to establish their solution, getting the clinical evaluation behind that. But it's an interesting way to see is that, especially when we start seeing with whom they're partnering. So you are highlighting here quite nicely, it's with institution and academia and with other digital health ventures, but also biopharma companies are extremely strong in partnering with them. Here actually taking the 3rd spot with 11% of the partnerships that we've seen. So there is the market demand there, and we do see partnerships establishing also with players that are actually paying significant money for that.
Yeah. Fantastic. Let me change slightly the question and analyze some another lenses of oncology. Talking about not just overall, but let's break it down a second and understand where this innovation is happening, both in what type of oncology, so what are those specific TAs, and also from a category perspective in digital health. So I'm going to share another slide. Okay. Would you like to comment this, or we go directly to the clusters thing?
Can you actually bring, I think it's the landing page, I think it's page 1 or 2 up. Page 1 or 2, the very, sorry.
This one?
No, I want the one with the heat map actually on it. Page 6.
Page 6.
Page 6. Yeah. Perfect.
Oh, this one.
Yeah. Considering that what we actually see, and it's like, where are oncology ventures the most focused on? So that little what's it actually called? It's a word map, a word cloud.
Word cloud.
A word cloud on the right hand side. It's nicely showing which areas within the oncology space are the most tackled by digital health ventures. So we are seeing that especially breast cancer and lung cancer are the ones that are the most, like the two that are the most featured within. Now, when we look from a technology or solution point of view, the most solutions that we are seeing within the oncology side is either medical imaging solutions. So how can you use biomarkers, even digital biomarkers, in order to make the diagnosis more efficient? At the same time, it could also be within the omics related diagnosis side. So using devices, using biomarkers to basically screen the patient for it. This is often just static genomics or other omic solution. Now, the medical diagnostics and research solution are working very hand in hand. Often the same solution can be used for research solutions as well. So from time to time, you're seeing an overlap between these two clusters as well. A Helix here, for instance, under the research solution also provides a medical diagnostics kit, but considering that it's been used heavily also for research purposes, it is here as a primary category under the research solution. Now, the telemedicine side in the lower right corner is quite an interesting one. There are various ways of how telemedicine can support in the adherence of patients having cancer. This could either be just your follow-up call after you had your screening been done using your genomic solution. It could also be you're already under long-term care, you are within your chemotherapy, and you just need to follow up with your physician without actually seeing them in person. So it eases the burden for the patient as well as for the physician to not always transit and go and see one another hand in hand. There are a few others here, which we put on our health management solution, which is more on the prescriptive analytics side. So how do you use data that are stored, for instance, within the EHR data set and actually make a prediction or help patients or help the physicians to make better clinical decisions there. So literally the clinical decision support. And then patient solution, literally there looking into digital therapeutics or other disease management solution to help manage the cancer for the patient, between the patient and the physician as well.
Fantastic. There's indeed also a direct correlation between the clusters and actually therapeutic areas. When you see breast cancer, lung cancer, and then you see medical diagnosis. So it directly connects with what we were saying before on early detection and also decrease a bit the burden of disease, of course. Considering that, again, we're talking about oncology solutions, it would be interesting to understand a bit more about the maturity of such solutions. Now, we have a nice and robust definition in Gallen Growth when we talk about clinical evidence or clinical robustness. Can we please comment over that a bit? I'm going to share another slide on that, even though it covers just one portion of the clinical evidence, but yeah. Please enrich a bit.
Yeah, so clinical evidence overall is for us always looking into how robust is the actual clinical solution that is available within the market. So how established has the venture itself as compared to their peers within. Now, what I was referring to earlier, we have around 350 ventures that are currently live and active operating within the oncology space. Just taking clinical robustness in there and are basically setting it that they have any sort of evidence available. We have 370 ventures out of these 500 that have established themselves with any sort of evidence already. So this can either be they've been used in a clinical trial, they have significant publications around their findings or their solution that has been clinically validated within the medical community. It could be that they're having any regulatory filing within any of the regulatory bodies globally as well. Now, this is quite an interesting chart, considering that when you look into the number of regulatory filings that have been filed over the years, generally the US or North America is extremely strong here. Last year with 44 as compared to Europe with 33. The difference between North America and Europe is always that there are significantly more CE bodies in Europe available as compared to the FDA within the US. So the likelihood of actually getting a CE clearance within any of the regulatory bodies within the European Union, the likelihood is significantly higher. So in theory, what we would expect that over the years, you would see the number to increase and increase. Now, what's quite interesting this year, we had only one regulatory filing within North America for oncology, which by itself is already extremely low. And taking the venture that actually received it, it was Guardant Health that received an FDA pre-market approval for their latest solution called Guardant Health Shield, if I'm not fully mistaken, which has been previously used for a study for patients with colorectal cancer, which is the Shield blood test that they've been using. So it's literally a liquid biopsy tool. As compared to the ones that we are seeing here within Europe, with the 10, we had a number of ventures that actually received their clearance here. It's Salmon Tree Medical, a very medical imaging centric solution, I think headquartered in Spain, if I'm not mistaken, but I might be totally wrong. Then we saw Sophia Genetics, very established Swiss company, also within the liquid biopsy space, and we saw Quibim. Quibim actually received their approval for the same solution where they got the FDA registration filed in November of last year. However, there's no approval yet set for the QP prostate cancer test. which is also a medical imaging biomarker solution that they have submitted to the FDA for registration, but haven't received the approval yet. The Italian CE mark certification, so Italy has granted the regulatory filing on in early February of this year to be basically now used within the European Union. So it's quite various, but most of these solutions that we are seeing that are actually receiving regulatory filings here are either medical imaging solution or it's liquid biopsy solutions or at-home test kits, so IBD solutions.
Fantastic. Thanks for that. We don't have any more questions from the audience. I still have my questions, but just wanted to understand if the audience is able to follow a bit the conversation we're having, and we are indeed satisfying, the questions that the people operating in the sector might have. We touched almost across the main topics of the report. I have one last question for you, Dario, that is that of if you could share a bit some examples of innovative solutions in oncology, just to give an idea of what are we talking about, what are these innovative solutions?
To talk about innovative solutions within the oncology space is always very, very tough. I probably wouldn't focus on these three that you have shared here. The European spotlight for us, or the spotlight within our reports, is always towards solutions that are that recently had any significant milestones within their path. It can be a regulatory filing, it can be a large funding round, it can be a partnership, and many, many other things. I would probably take it a bit from somewhere else, but I see that you probably have a burning question on your face.
Yeah, it is quite burning. It's very critical. What are basically, someone is asking about the greatest barriers to pharma adopting clinically validated digital therapeutics that we see. This is quite tough and quite open-ended question. Do you want to try?
It's quite a tough question. I can see what I can put together for that. There are many barriers that we are seeing. It's either from ventures that are not fully validated yet, even though this one is specifically referring to the ones that are validated, and the other one is actually then to show the ROI on the ventures that are already clinically validated. Just because you have a clinical validation does not mean that you have a strong market fit already there. This is again referring a bit to the pair therapeutics chapter 11 filing, which was literally sliced into many different slices within the pair itself. There was a very nice image that Fierce was publishing out how a pair was sliced into, I think, eight or nine slices. Solutions are always targeting a particular market segment where there may or may not be adoption from the patient, from the clinician yet. This can lead, therefore, that your solution is nicely validated within the market. You have published you've published publications about it. You haven't used in clinical trials. It doesn't mean that it's actually being used later on. So the product market fit might not be there. And this also seems a bit like what happened to pair therapeutics. The solution is great. It's just how it's been marketed out there and actually being used did not generate the return on investment that is necessary for the company to sustain. We likely are going to see something similar happening within the oncology space as well. There's so much money going into the space. There was, I think, earlier this year in February or March, there's Teal Health that raised about a 9 million funding round to bring a cervical cancer screening test kit to market. Now, does the 9 million, or does the ease for the patient, the potential ease for the patient, rectify the amount of funding that is getting deployed into it for a venture in the seed funding rounds to generate their to generate their evidence and therefore being actually used also by patients later on, it's a totally different question. So the valuations within the oncology space are still so through the roof that there needs to be a failure at some point, considering that there are just so many solutions on the market available that are all offering the same, or I sent you your test kit to your home and you can use it there. It will happen sooner or later. And that's exactly what happened also with Pear in the end as well. So coming back to the question, the product market fit for a pharma company needs to be there if it's actually generating serious revenue. Only then Pear Therapeutics would have also likely been acquired by a single player, not by 8-9 players in the end that are all taking a small solution out of them, where they see this fits complementary into our solution that we're already having within the market.
Yeah, my question would have been slightly different, as in what is the perception / adoption from patients, basically, of this type of solution? Because it also goes a bit, you know, I understand it and totally agree with the economic sense that you were making, the economic analysis that you were making, but what about the end patient? And I mean, if you have any insider information on this.
I wouldn't claim that I have insider information, but when it comes to digital therapeutics overall, let's just stay there for a second. It is, you are basically competing with the pharma players. What I was mentioning during our last conversation as well is that the price for treatment, the drug, is often so much lower. The time effort from the patient to actually use a drug is significantly lower. Therefore, the adoption of, I need to play with my ADHD application 3 times a week for an hour might not fit into the timetable of every single patient. Therefore, it's more an educational side. Educating the patient that using it doesn't harm your body, but helps you at the same time. Now, in oncology, it's totally different, considering that there are no digital therapeutics that can treat the cancer in your body. It's not because you are changing your behavior and how you are interacting with your mobile phone might treat your cancer. It just doesn't work that way. Cancer is still a critical illness versus most neurological factors that are psychological or neurological and psychological that you often can train with behavioral changes. Cancer cannot be treated through behavioral changes. You can prevent cancer by having a behavioral change. You shouldn't smoke, you shouldn't drink, you should eat healthy, you should walk out, you should work out and walk a lot. These are behavioral changes that are preventing cancer from occurring maybe later on. But this is why it's like apples and pears, right? You can't necessarily compare critical illness with a neurological condition or with a mental condition.
Great answer. Thank you for that. We have basically 2 minutes left to this analyst briefing. Would you like to spend a bit of word in going through one venture focusing on digital health oncology, or we could comment a bit on the most active corporate partners in oncology, and we see quite some familiar names here. And also this, I guess it's of course.
Let's just stick with the corporates for us. Yeah, let's just stick with the corporates for a second, considering that we have been kind of referring to a few ventures earlier with Garden and Quibim and what's or not.
Yeah.
The interesting factor within the corporate side is still that biopharma is still closing the most partnerships within. You do start seeing that insurance companies are picking up slightly as compared to pharma companies, actually working with these critical illness related ventures, trying to provide more tailored solution in terms of the insurance policy, also to patients who are wanting to have a premium that is covering cancer. But when we look overall, insurance companies are accounting for about 4.5% of all partnerships that are within the oncology sector. versus biopharma that are accounting for about 15% of all partnerships that are within the sector. So there's still a huge difference here. When you see here NVIDIA, which is a bit of an outlier as compared to all of the other companies that you see up there, which are all pharma companies, obviously, and I think we all know them just from the names. NVIDIA is partnering extremely heavily with medical imaging companies. And here, this is why also considering medical imaging companies are often focused on cancer or on oncology. This is why NVIDIA is shining out as compared to other 10 companies here as well, and it's actually partnering actively with them, helping them with the analysis of the data sets that they're actually having. Overall, the only interesting thing here that I also might want to allude to is the venture primary category. When you look into everything that AstraZeneca, Roche, Novartis, and Pfizer have been doing this year, they're all omics-related diagnosis. So literally using just blood drops, for instance, in order to analyze whether someone got cancer or not. So we're kind of moving very nicely and slowly through the liquid biopsy side, considering that now these solutions have significantly advanced as compared to the Theranos times a few years ago.
Oh, right. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, another topic we might spend some time in another analyst briefing, even though it has been commented, at depth, basically. But yeah, it's an interesting topic, when we talk about this type of solutions and what went wrong. Basically, it's like a highlight of heads up for the rest of ventures, basically. But this is a bit what we had prepared for today. Yeah, I don't have any more questions for you, unless you had anything else you would like to share with us today.
Okay. No, the only as a closing remark to the users that we are having with us today as well is oncology remains a high demand topic. We should still look into the valuations of most companies that are sitting behind them, whether they're actually responding to the funding that they've been raising, or whether the valuations are actually way too high. So coming a bit back to the basics, considering that we do see lots of M&As and IPOs within the space, the topic remains very hot and people are still dying of cancer. So oncology overall will remain a very strong field, also for venture funding to float into, ventures to find novel solutions within. But yeah, this is where we are at the moment, and we see this little dent at the moment that will likely by the end of this year also get dented out. And we start seeing money pouring back into oncology as we've seen over the past years. Cool. With this, I'm closing.
We have a last question. You mentioned Pear Therapeutics' demise. Wasn't a Pharmaco an early partner with them and then parted ways? So can Pharmacos really be relied upon to drive scaling? Okay.
It's an interesting question.
We can speak on behalf of. It would have been nice to have someone representing that type of stakeholder. But it's a sharing feeling, the question.
Yeah, we've seen a few positive examples there. Also with potential buyouts later on. We've seen other partnerships also within the space, just looking into the Novartis partnership with our little pill diagnosis solution. I lost the name now. So often we see pharma partners working quite actively also within digital health very early on. I wouldn't call them a reliable or not reliable partner. They are a good partner that can help you scale, give you access to research headcount that you might not have internally and market as well. Whether you can always rely on them is a totally different question. I would necessarily, if I'm a venture, I wouldn't bet on one horse. So working with different stakeholders all together is likely the best way moving forwards and diversifying your portfolio of partners.
That's great.
Cool. And with this, we can close
so
up
much.
for
Thank
today.
you. Yeah, thank you, Dario, so much for accepting also this other type of the in-depth questions. Thank you to the audience for participating. One last statement. Basically, today's analyst briefing is recorded. It is posted in our page as well as the research. So for any more in-depth questions you might have, you will always have me and Daria to gather those, and you have our contacts everywhere. So it's very easy to find us. Feel free to download also the report and catch you up in the next
time.
briefing.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye, everyone. Bye.